your focus needs to be on who is healthy for me. And healthy people respect boundaries. So when that time does come, because it will, where you realize that this person's efforts are not genuine, or this person's efforts is trying to obligate me to lower my boundaries, and they throw a tantrum, that's when you can say, okay, this person is not the person for me.
Hey, good night, best friends. Tonight we're gonna have Miss Nailah Abdullah, a toxic relationship coach with a career background in mental health therapy. After over a decade of working in the mental health field, she decided to pivot to working specifically with women coming out of toxic or narcissistic relationships. Overcoming her own trauma with narcissistic romantic and family relationships, she decided to combine her professional knowledge with the lessons she learns from her personal experience and create coaching programs to serve women who are looking to heal and break the cycle of toxic narcissistic relationships for good. So, if you are that type of woman and has managed to figure out and become successful in other areas of your life, however, continue to struggle with the pain, agony, and ongoing turmoil of toxic relationships, Nailah Abdullah is the person to connect with. She can relate and help you to break that cycle, giving you the freedom to build healthy, fulfilling relationships that are in alignment with the greatness that you are. Let's take a listen.
Welcome back to another episode of the 5 Years to 40 podcast. My name is Anisha, and I'm so happy that you're joining me for this episode, because tonight we'll be speaking to a very special guest, Miss Nailah Abdullah, who is a relationship coach who specializes in narcissism. Guys, we will finally have the information to know how to not just spot a narcissist, but to avoid a narcissist completely. So if you've been here before, you know that we keep our conversations around 4 pillar topics. We talk about our health, we talk about our finances, we talk about our careers, and we talk about our relationships. So tonight we'll be talking about relationships. I want to introduce you guys to Miss Abdullah. How are you, darling? Thank you for joining tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. So, I rev up my listeners, I rev up my audience, and I've told them that I've given them information, not just word of mouth, not just something I pick up on Pinterest. This is an expert here right now to help us with this problem that everybody's talking about, narcissism, and people getting into relationships with people who are narcissists. So I'm so thankful that you gave us the time to join us and to share the information that you have. I'm really grateful for you being here tonight. Okay, so speaking of which, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and about your coaching business?
Absolutely. So like you said, my name is Nailah Abdullah. My career background is in mental health therapy. I've been in the field since about 2010 in different roles. And in the mental health field, you have different terms: mental health therapist, counselor, worker. But around 2017, I decided to pivot into coaching. And I decided to go specifically into toxic relationship healing and recovery because of my own personal experience with narcissistic romantic relationship. And right after coming out of that, having to deal with coming out of narcissistic family relationships. So I felt like I got way too much experience to let it go to waste. And I realized that I was not the only one, that there were many women that were dealing with what I call avoidable suffering. And I noticed this before I got into the specific area of toxic and narcissistic relationships. Even as a mental health worker and therapist, I've noticed that relationships can cause some of the most trauma and pain and agony for people, right? And I say avoidable suffering because, if you were to walk into the hospital tomorrow, the doctor's office, and they were to diagnose you with cancer, that is something that you did not necessarily bring on yourself. That is not something that you can say, okay, I'm going to change the way that I think and behave, and then the cancer is going to go away, right? But with relationships, there are things that we can do to prevent that type of suffering. So I found it my calling. I found it my mission, my responsibility, rather, not to allow all of this experience from the professional end, as well as from the personal experience to keep it to myself and to not allow and to work with other women who are going through the same situation to bring them from point A to point B, which is getting out of the relationship, and healing and getting to a place where they don't continue the cycle, they don't continue the pattern of toxic and narcissistic relationships. So here I am today.
Well, we do love and appreciate you for doing that, for using your light to help us women and men. Guys, I don't want y'all to think this is your girlfriend's episode. This applies to you as well, because men can be manipulated and can encounter narcissists, okay? But I just really appreciate that you're using your experience and using all of your education and everything that you've been exposed to now help women who are going through these situations and help them to better be able to transition from the confusion that being exposed to narcissism could feel like, and moving to a better place. And like you, being in relationships with people who just aren't healthy for you is avoidable once you have the right information and the right knowledge to avoid it. Now, speaking of which, what do you find most rewarding now that you're in this coaching space? What do you find most rewarding about the work that you do?
Yeah, well, in the mental health field, you always feel good to see people be able to evolve, right? To be able to go from whatever they're struggling with to no longer struggling with it. But specifically working as a toxic relationship coach is seeing women going from a place of feeling confused and embarrassed and stuck to feeling free, to feeling at peace, to feeling confident again, loving on themselves again, and not being in a place of bitterness, where they're like, okay, no to all men, because that's a space that people go into. And sometimes they think that that means that they're healed because they're protecting themselves, they have up a guard, but it's still not ultimately where you want to be. So seeing women going from point A to point B, like I said, feeling at peace, feeling confident, and feeling like they trust themselves again to even consider being in a relationship again.
That must be a beautiful thing to observe, to see women moving from, like you said, bitterness and feeling bad about themselves. When you're in a relationship with a narcissist, you find that you are almost embarrassed to talk about it after the fact, because you realize, well, at least you feel like if you played along with it, you gave them maybe too much chances or whatnot. So you have the weight of the shame, and then the weight of the fact that this is somebody that you would have had very strong feelings for, you may have been in love with, and this is how they did you wrong. And sometimes while you're raging that they did that to you, also feel like, well, you should have known better, or you should have seen, or you should have known. So the fact that you are a safe space for women when they're feeling that fragile, I would imagine that it's great seeing them evolve, coming from that dark space into walking into the light of a healthier version, happier version of themselves. So yeah, so let's get into the meat of the matter now. We talked about narcissism, and narcissism has become somewhat of a buzzword. There are many definitions out there, but from your experience, what can you tell us exactly about narcissists? Like, who is a narcissist?
Yeah, I love this question because it's like you said, it's a buzzword, it's trendy, everyone's using it, and I have a little bit of a rebellious spirit against trends. I was one of those people that when everybody was switching over from BlackBerry to iPhone, I still had my BlackBerry, like it still works. I don't need a new phone, right? So I'm a little rebellious towards that, because sometimes we're kind of like sheep. We're just following things just because it's out there and it's pumped into us, right? But before I go into the cons, there are pros to this term being, trendy and a buzzword, is that people are aware. People are aware that there is a personality type out there that behaves in the way that they do. Because if you're not aware, you start to think you're losing it. You start to feel like you're in the twilight zone. You start to question, like, am I seeing things correctly? Because you can't fathom that someone is behaving the way that they're behaving, and treating you the way that they're treating you. Because this is not your average, oh, the relationship just isn't working out, right? This is deeper than that. And it can really cause you to feel like you're losing it. So that is the pro to the fact that it is now trendy. But the con of that is that people are getting so caught up in the trend of it that they're not looking at self, right? And to really heal from the experience, you have to go back to you. So to get back to your question of as far as what is narcissism, narcissistic personality disorder is a personality disorder from the DSM. The DSM is a book, diagnostic statistical manual. It's like the Bible for mental health providers, right? That is the book that we use to go into diagnose any diagnosis. Every certain amount of years, scientists, they go in and they maybe tweak it and change it, or they add things. But it is a manual. It is a manual that lists all the mental health disorders and diagnosis, and it lists exactly the criteria that you need to have in order to fall under that diagnosis. Now, with that said, a lot of times when people are using the word narcissist, they are actually really referring to people who show those traits, because narcissists, because of their personality, they don't even go for therapy. Most of them, because their personality traits don't allow them to even reflect to say, maybe something's wrong with me. Let me get help. That goes completely against their personality structure, right? So a lot of times when we're using that word, it's really talking about people who are presenting with the traits of narcissism, not that person has gotten diagnosed by a mental health professional and you know for sure that they have narcissism. But narcissism, basically, like I said, there's a list of criteria within the DSM that a mental health provider would use to diagnose, but it basically is someone who has a personality where they have a very fragile ego. That's the root of it, right? Because of their fragile ego, because they're not really confident within themselves, and that stems from their childhood experience, actually. So narcissism, your personality forms in your childhood, and depending on your childhood experiences, some develop this personality disorder. And it's usually either because they were ignored and neglected emotionally, or they were too overly praised and in an unhealthy way, right? Where they could do no wrong. So they develop a personality where they believe that they can do no wrong, right? And they are entitled. So because of this ego, this fragile ego that they develop, their whole their entire concern and motive is to continue to feed that ego to feel good about themselves, which means they have to break you in order to feel good about themselves. And that's by any means necessary. No one is exempt, not the mama, not the daddy, not the brother, the sister, or the children. That's a key point that people need to remember, because sometimes people feel like, okay, maybe they don't treat so-and-so good, but they'll treat me good. No, there's no one is exempt. So because of that fragile ego, they need to receive supply. That is a term you'll hear in narcissism, meaning that it's like a mosquito. They need to bite for the blood. The narcissist needs to continue to feel good. They need to feel praise. They need to see you not doing well so that they can feel better about themselves. They need to break you. They lack empathy. So them hurting you, they don't feel that. They may pretend to. They're very good at masking and being manipulative, but ultimately their only focus is to feel good about themselves. So that is narcissism in a nutshell. Very hard to spot initially, but that is the core of that personality disorder.
Now that gives us a lot to unpack. I can see what you're talking about, the tendency where it happens in childhood. A lot of people who are broken in childhood, neglected in childhood, would have had tumultuous childhood experiences now react in that way. And
Yeah.
that word where you said like supplies, like they need to be able to always be getting attention all of the time. And if you are happy, they have to break you down. That part I've witnessed personally. I've seen, like, if you're in a relationship with a narcissist and you're doing well and you have healthy friends, friendship circles, friendship like family and whatnot, it's almost like if they're mad that you have other people who love and adore you. It's like that shouldn't happen, like, and if that happens, they like would try to destroy you, the family, make it seem like something wrong. It is, oh my God, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I
And what
see that, I'm like,
what confuses people with that, like that example you just gave, as far as like the family, and like close friends, what confuses people with that is that a narcissist, on one hand, they may try to sabotage it. On the other hand, they may praise you for it. They may want to be around you and your family. And that is what confuses people, because they're like, well, one minute you love being around me and my friends and my family, but then the other minute you're trying to break us up. Like, it's confusing, right? And the last thing you want to think is that someone has ill intentions for you. So usually people hold on to the positive part, which is the part where,
right.
oh, they want to be around me and my friends and my family. The reason for that is that even though they envy you, they still want to reap the benefits of who you are. Right? Because that also feeds their ego. It also gives them supply. It makes them feel normal. It makes them feel like they are connected. They know they can't have those genuine connections that you have. So they need to on to you in order to reap those benefits. So that is where it gets confusing, because they're doing both. They're hating you and loving you at the same time.
It's crazy. And then, well, I mean, not to use the word crazy in a flippant way, but it's like
Yeah.
oh my gosh. And you talked about them being able to pretend and mask so well. But my thing is, okay, if you're able to mask so well, like develop a whole personality to pretend like you're somebody who loving and kind and caring about somebody, then why can't you just do that for forever? I mean, just you're pretending for this long. I was reading something a couple of days ago, preparing for this, and I read that the mask that they have on can last anywhere between 3 to 6, maybe even 9 months. But at some point it will fall off, because that's just who they are. But if you can pretend for 3 months, if you can pretend for 6 months, 9 months is how long it takes to make a whole child. Just make a new personality. Just be a nice person. Oh my God. Be a nice person. Oh,
they can't. And that's a good question that you pose. Like, why can't you just change if you realize that this is who people are attracted to? When you have this mask, people are attracted to you this way. Like, why don't you just stay this way? I give this example. I believe that as human beings, we put ourselves too much on a pedestal compared to other mammals. We have a lot of similarities with our mammals out in the jungle, right? So I use the example of animals. So if you see if you get an alligator, right? A baby alligator, you raise it, you love on it, you give it everything it wants. At the end of the day, it's still an alligator. Same thing with the snake. You have to be careful when you go to sleep at night, because no matter how well you treated that snake from the time it hatched, it's going to be a snake.
Yeah.
It can't change. And that is the thing with personality disorders. It's not something, and even in the mental health field, it is not something that you can just treat. You can give pills for. There's no talk therapy that can really change it. Now, since I've been in this coaching field and I've seen other people out on social media, I've seen some people say, yeah, they're in therapy and they're doing better. But it is an ongoing struggle. It's somewhat like addictions, right? They say once an addict, always an addict. You're constantly having to work against that urge to use. That is a personality disorder. And the thing is with narcissism is that, with addictions, you know that if you don't fight against that, your whole life can turn to shambles, right? Because you know that can be the outcome. So you're more motivated to continue to fight that battle every day that you wake up. But with narcissism, you can live a quote unquote normal life. You can be extremely successful, and because of their selfishness and their obnoxiousness, that is, if that's a word, being obnoxious. It is okay.
Bigly is a word now. We can go with it.
Because of those character traits, they actually can become very successful.
Yeah.
So they're not really motivated as the example I gave as an addict to change, because it's working for them. Why make myself so uncomfortable if it's working for me? Like, that's too much work for them. But really, they're not capable. It's just the same thing. If you look at animals, in the animal kingdom, you cannot make certain animals be nice. It's just not in their nature. Same thing.
I love that example. It very clearly explains why they can do the mask, but just deep down who they are, that's who they are, and we shouldn't try to change them. Which brings me to my next question, right? Because, I just want to know, especially for us females, if there are certain behavior traits so we spoke about the behavior traits of the narcissist, but are there traits that we display that can make them believe that it's easier to come for us? Like, are there things that we exude, or knowingly or unknowingly, that we send out, those messages? Because I almost feel like narcissists are like predators, right? So are there like things that we may not even recognize that we're doing that could draw them to us?
That's a good question. And I love that question, because I think a lot of people need to hear this. What draws them to you, you don't need to change. What draws them to you is your good character traits, that you are loving, that you are caring, that you are ambitious, right? That you do want to see other people win in the way that you want to win, right? So everything good about you is what attracts them. That is not what you want to change. And that is the mistake sometimes that I see women making, is that they feel like, okay, I need to stop being so nice. I need to stop being so kind. I need to be more, more mean. Don't change who you are. That's actually giving them what they want, because now they're able to control who you are. Even if they're not with you anymore and you turn into this bitter woman, they still won. They're not even with you and they won. Right?
Exactly.
So don't change who you are just because they're attracted to you. What you do want to change, or to make sure that you have secure, is your willingness to let go when something doesn't seem right.
Right.
And I was gonna say also boundaries. But what I've noticed in my own experience, as well as other women that I work with, is that most women actually don't have a problem setting boundaries. I don't have a problem setting boundaries. I've become more strict with it as I've gotten older. You realize you have less time, so you have less tolerance for nonsense.
Tolerance level going down.
However, what I think got me, and get a lot of people, is that they're not willing to let go when things are not right. Because the way the abuse trickles in, it's so gradual and it's so insidious, it's so hidden, that you're like, it's not right, but it's not bad enough to let go.
Right.
That is what I think. So don't change who you are, because all the great characteristics you have is what, yes, it attracts them, but don't change that. Yeah. But be in a space where you are so strict, even if people call you rigid, too much, it's okay, because the right people won't consider you rigid and too much.
Right. That makes so much sense. Like, you're saying that, and the light bulbs are going off in my head. Like, so I can share that I had an experience with a narcissist at one point, and it was exactly that. So my nature is to welcome everybody. Like, I like people. I like to hang out in my have a big family and we're very close. And but I'm the most outgoing in all of them. So I'm the one always bringing somebody in. Oh, guys, meet this person. Da 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 da. Usually the one doing that, and they're like, girls I meet, friends I meet, professionals. I'm like, this person. Da da da. So like kind of like the social butterfly thing. And when I met this guy, I was just like, well, I didn't know. I don't really know. I didn't know him from anywhere, but we started speaking. And like 2 weeks into speaking, just talking on the phone, he said something that was offensive. And I was like, I don't like that you said that. And he's like, really? In this way? I'm like, huh, you know what? That's it. And my boundaries are like real rigid. Like, okay, so I explained to you, I don't like how this come off from you, and you just like brush it off. Okay, fine. I don't know you. We could just disconnect. Let's disconnect one time. So I immediately blocked, right? But I guess he would have had another number, so he called again, and we continued talking and whatnot. But later it turned out that he just really was a narcissist, like a real cruel narcissist person. And unfortunately, what I realized is that I'm okay. Like at one point, I wanted to change my person. I thought maybe I'm just too open to people. Maybe you're too friendly or whatnot. But it's not that. It is that the first time that I blocked him was supposed to be the last time we spoke. So that is the know who you are and stay and be who you are. Show up as who you are. That's what I would say. That's what I needed to add to add context to what you're saying, because when you talk about having the boundaries, and when you speak about knowing not changing who you are, like the good parts of you, I completely agree. And I know women who would have been in situations who would have become like cold and like shut people off because of in response to the abuse that they would have undergone with people who are narcissists,
Correct.
Now, manipulation is the name of the game with narcissists, right? And oftentimes they reel us in, they use poise, they use charm. But while they're doing all of that, what can be some of the early warning signs? Because spots in the midst of all that charm that could make us know, potential narcissist here, potential narcissist. How can we flag them?
I would say when they are, as they call it, love bombing. They use that term in the narcissist world. So we're pouring on all the charm and everything. When you notice that they throw a tantrum or they don't like when you try to slow them down, because usually you feel the pressure, you want the attention, you like the attention, but something feels a little bit too forced.
Right.
And when you try to slow them down, or where they feel like you're not appreciating their love bombing, that's where you see a toddler in an adult body. They get a little agitated. Some of them do throw full-on tantrums, adult tantrums. So that's a sign where, and you may not be able to say, "Oh, that's a narcissist," but a red flag goes up. Something is not right. Right?
Flag number one, temper tantrums.
Exactly. You're throwing a tantrum. You don't like the fact that I'm saying, let's slow down a bit, or, I'm not ready for that yet, or whatever it is. The fact that you feel like in a rush and you feel offended, that's a red flag.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you go a little deeper into what the love bombing is? I feel like that's something that they do that can really be confusing for the recipient, because like you said, like especially in the case of women, we are meant to receive stuff, like meant to receive affection and attention. And when somebody provides that, sometimes it takes a little bit for you to recognize, oh my gosh, this person is doing too much. So when you say the term love bombing, what can you break that down a little bit for us?
Yeah, so as far as what it is, like what you talked about, the charm, giving extra attention, wanting to do everything for you, wanting to show you off and, just pour into you. And, that question comes up like, well, how do I know whether it's real or not? Sometimes you don't. And
Right.
so with relationships, you have to be willing to take that risk. You're not going to know from the first encounter whether this is real or not. You may not even know from the 10. Right? Because you could go on 10 dates. You can go out for coffee 10 times and still not know. Right? But eventually it will start to show. So don't try not to get too caught up in how do I know it's a narcissist? Like, it's not a race, it's not a game. Like, don't get caught up in the trend of trying to diagnose. Your focus needs to be on who is healthy for me. And healthy people respect boundaries. So when that time does come, because it will, where you realize that this person's efforts are not genuine, or this person's efforts is trying to obligate me to lower my boundaries, and they throw a tantrum, that's when you can say, okay, this person is not the person for me. You don't have to diagnose them. You don't have to go that deep. And that's the part where I start to rebel against the trend of narcissism, because people focus too much on trying to diagnose. That's not our responsibility. If you do happen to see the traits of a narcissist, great. Now you can have more information. But the main goal in life, to have that fulfilling life, to have healthy, fulfilling relationships all around, romantic, family, friends, is that you want to have people in your life that's healthy for you. And narcissists cannot respect boundaries. So that's how you're going to start to see that they are not healthy for you. They're going to rebel against your boundaries. They're going to try to get you to break your boundaries down gradually. And that's where you have to say, even if you can't articulate what you're experiencing, because like I said, that's a common phase to be in. Like, something doesn't feel right, you can't really articulate it. Be willing to say, I need some time to myself.
Yeah.
A man who's really interested in you, he knows you're not trying to play games. So this is not a game playing. I know sometimes women like to play games and want to say, oh, I need a break, just to make the man want them. This is not about playing games. If you're serious, exactly. A man will be able to see that you are a serious woman, and he will respect that you need a little bit of time, and he'll give you that time. Right? So with your gut, be willing to take time to yourself if something doesn't feel right, and don't get too caught up in trying to diagnose. Your main focus needs to be, is this person healthy for my space?
Yeah. And it's interesting that it always comes back to us, right? Because they can have a million things that going on out there, but at the end of the day, based on what you're saying, is how much we know ourselves and trust ourselves to recognize, okay, this is going too fast, pump the brakes. This doesn't feel good. Even if the person seems like the best, well-poised person, if it's not feeling good, to trust your gut and trust your intuition and trust yourself to know, this is not the road I want to go down. So you can pause and take a step back. And if they throw a temper tantrum, then thank God, it's because now you know to make another move, like make another decision, and not stay in something that feels uncomfortable. So that still gives us our power back, because at the end of the day, once you recognize this is not where you want to go, you can make a better decision. So I love that you highlighted that. Now, I believe that love is the most powerful chemical in the world. I like to say it's chemical because I believe that, like, love is transformative. You can add it to things, and we can use it to heal ourselves. What can you share with us about moving from that space of trauma and shame and self-doubt into a better feeling place?
Yeah, that's a good question, because shame is definitely something that comes along with those relationships. And, there's a lot of fancy terminology and answers out there, but I'm a practical type of woman. And I would say you need to remind yourself that there is no perfect being out there.
Right.
Everyone on this planet has made mistakes and has made poor decisions.
Right.
And it's not about making the poor decisions. It's about what are you going to do after that? Are you going to let it consume you? Are you going to let it control you? Are you going to continue to make those same mistakes and not work on yourself? Right? That is, I think, the mindset that we have to make in order to relieve ourselves of that shame. And of course, it's not going to happen overnight. That is something that you will have to continue to process and recite to yourself and look yourself in the mirror and say, no one has the right to judge me. But a lot of times I think that, including for myself and other women that I work with, a lot of women that are in these type of narcissistic relationships are generally well-rounded, healthy, successful, ambitious women. Like they have it going on in every other area of their life, right? And then they end up with this. It's like A plus, A plus, A plus, A plus, and like, how did that happen? That's where the shame comes in, because they're like, everyone's seeing me doing so well in all these other areas, but I completely screwed it up here. And I screwed it up for a long time, because usually narcissistic relationships are long-term relationships most of the time, right? So I think reminding yourself that, okay, yes, I figured all of this out, but I haven't figured this out yet. And everybody on this planet is figuring something out. So you have to tell yourself that, like, it's okay. It's okay. Yep. What's not okay is that you don't do the work to make sure that that doesn't happen again. Yeah. Or that you try to mask it with other achievements and how much money you make and how good your weave looks and how many trips you take with your girlfriends. Like all of that stuff is nice, but it's not going to help you to evolve, to make sure that you are a new version of yourself, that you are a new version that won't fall into that trap again. It doesn't mean you won't date a narcissist again, because they're good and you can't spot them right away. But what you do want to become is a type of woman that you are able to spot it. And when you do, you're able to let go and move on peacefully.
Gosh, that is a beautiful answer. That's a powerful answer, because the truth is, so many times I've seen it where it's almost like this narcissist know that you're powerful and strong. And like you said earlier, they're attracted to that anyway. They're attracted to your success, and they come in and then they try to ruin it. And you then have to sit and say, oh my gosh, I'm doing so well. I make all these great decisions at work and for my kids. And then here I am with this person, like what is going on? And that could really keep you down. But I love that you're saying that everybody's figuring something out. Oh my gosh, everybody is figuring something out. So this is just what you are figuring out right now. If you're listening, if you're watching, just remember that if you're going through this, do not succumb to self-doubt. We are all going through different things in our life, and if that's what you're dealing with at this point, you're just figuring it out until you move to a better, happier place. Okay, so stay strong with us. We're good. We're gonna get through this together. And so if someone wants to work with you, if someone wants to, they're going through this situation right now and they want to reach out to you, get some more information, or just start on that journey, so that, like you said, even if they date another narcissist, they know how to spot them easier and not fall back into the same pattern again. How can we work with you, or how can we access your work?
Absolutely. So I'm all over social media, but besides social media, my website is a direct way. So nailahabdullah.com. I have a coaching program where I work with women for a total of about 3 months, where they get direct access one-on-one, where we really work through, and I've combined my professional experience along with my own personal experience and proven framework, where I help women move through that transition. Like I said, it's not just about healing, but about getting to a place where you're breaking the cycle, and like I said, breaking the cycle is not just about you, but it's about the next generation, because so often your children are seeing what you're doing, your nieces and nephews, any, your little cousins, people are watching you, and you don't know sometimes how people admire you. So being able to break that cycle is much bigger than you. So going to the website to access that program, you can contact me there. I'm also on Instagram at nailahabdullah.msw. Also on Facebook, also on TikTok, and whoever's listening, I'm sure I'll put all the links there because my name is
absolutely.
So, yeah, but I'm over there, so you can always reach out to me. I do live classes sometimes on Instagram, or I just go live and we have different conversations. So if you just want to interact with me and so forth, you can access me there. But I do have a program if you want to work with me one-on-one that you can access via my website.
Awesome. And guys, all of this information will be in the show notes. If you're looking on YouTube, look in the description, it'll be there. And if you're listening on Spotify or wherever else you're listening right now, the information will be in the show notes. But I'm telling you, her TikToks are fire. They're full of information. It's like a mouthful of like, woo, okay, now I know what to do. And you guys really want to follow and support Nailah. I am so happy that you made it on the show. Now, before we head off, I like to do a little pop quiz for my guests. I hope you're in the mood for a little pop quiz. Just 5 questions, 5 minutes. You answer with whatever first comes to mind.
Okay, all right.
You up for it? You up for it?
Honestly, I hated pop quizzes in school, but I'm not in school, so I'm down for it now.
This will be better, I promise. Okay, so let's go. Can you share with us 5 things that you're most thankful for?
Peace, as cliche as it sounds, peace, my family, good friendships, connection to God, and my health.
Yay! All great answers. I love that. If you could win $5 million tomorrow, what would you do with it?
Not tell anybody. Other than my husband, not tell a soul. No.
Okay, that's a good answer, actually. I might do that. Okay, universe, you can send the $5 billion. I think we have a good answer for that, though. Okay, so what is one thing you know for sure that you wish you had known 5 years ago?
I think what I have learned now that I don't say I wish I knew it 5 years ago, but I didn't realize it, is that the more time that I spend with my Creator, the more I will hear his guidance. I did not realize how powerful that is. Yeah. And 5 years ago, I would say I was probably worried about certain things and stressing about certain things. And 5 years later, I realized that that is just so unnecessary. Yeah.
That's a good one. That's a good one. That's a good one. Okay. Name one thing you achieved in the last 5 years that you're just super proud of.
And I was able to let go of toxic and narcissistic relationships that I never thought I would let go of. I was able to create my own space of peace.
Peace.
Yeah.
Peace is power, so that means you're a powerful woman. Well, we know this. And finally, what is one thing you'd like to accomplish in the next 5 years?
I want to reach more women. So right now, working with women one-on-one is great. And of course, being out on social media and being able to share my message and to help women just by hearing my content. But I really want to break this. I call myself the whistleblower. Like, I really want to break this societal problem that is going on. Like, this is so real. I think every person that I have spoken to has dealt with someone who is narcissistic. So if everyone that I've spoken to has either dealt with it themselves or know someone that have, that means this is a big problem. So I want to be able to reach more people on a macro level. Right. I haven't figured out how and when yet, but that is something I would like to see within the next 5 years.
That is awesome. And you know something? Because of the passion that you have, the experience that you have, and the fact that you have a divine connection with your creator, it will happen. It will come to pass.
Amen.
Because I can see the passion you have when you speak about this. I can see how you recognize what you contribute to the world can really change the lives of women, and you are doing it even now. So I'm just thankful that you were able to be here with us tonight, and hopefully this podcast will touch the person that needs to hear it. And who knows what shift we're creating just by having this. And the fact that you are interested in sharing instead of keeping what you know. Also, while researching for this podcast, I recognize that in the Caribbean, especially, and you're based in the Caribbean,
Yes.
a lot of women experience relationships, our parents and whatnot, that plagued with narcissism and abuse, emotional, physical, otherwise abuse, but it has almost become a normal thing in the Caribbean. Like, because people, the guys who are braggadocious and whatnot almost get extra props and praise for being who they are. And really and truly, some of the ways they behave, if you know what the traits of narcissism are, you could tell that this guy is wonderful at work and wonderful in his community, but
At home. Mhm.
at home, the man, so it is really important for women to understand that what they're going through is they're not going through it alone, for them to trust the wisdom that they feel in their bodies, the way they feel when these things happen to them, and know that there's a way to navigate through it, and to help future generations, help our sons and our daughters that are coming up to understand that you can achieve the things you want without manipulating people, without being a narcissist, without throwing temper tantrums. You could have a healthy relationship with people. So that's really important.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for the work that you're doing in the world.
Thank you for having me. This is an important topic, and I'm honored that you trusted me to come on and speak to your people. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, you're very, very welcome. And I hope that we'll be able to have you back again. I know there are many angles we can talk about this, but most importantly, guys, let me just say, we'll just remind you that her coaching program is amazing, and you guys should definitely check it out. And if you're going through this, if you're struggling through this, remember you're not alone. There's help, and know that you can get to a brighter day.
Yes.
Okay, so we're here for you. All right, my dear, thank you again tonight. And I guess we will talk again soon. All right.
Yes,
Bye.
Bye.